Today we are moving forward and finishing up your rough draft for your clay tile. Now, yesterday you came up with a design. You might have started drawing some textures into it, but also you might not have started drawing your textures. So today I'm going to give you some examples of some textures and show you the difference between additive and subtractive, and also show you some mistakes that I've seen a lot where a student will think something is a texture and it's actually not. So first, clay. My at-home people, have you picked up your clay yet? If you haven't, it will be on Miss Brown's back porch all today and all weekend. On Monday, everybody is getting a piece of clay. Now, when you get your clay, you are going to be making a tile out of it. Most of us are making a square tile. So here is the design that I've started with that is mimicking this texture tile that I have made in the past. So you can see that it has this added texture, this added texture, and this one. All three of those are a texture because a texture is something that represents the way something feels. You drew textures last week, and so today we're drawing textures again onto your design. To be a texture, something, it has to repeat. It's almost like a pattern. Pattern and texture go hand in hand. They work together really well. So if you are looking at something made from ceramic, so here's a ceramic letter T that I made a long time ago. You can see that there are three things happening on this T. There's this triangle that's been added on top. It is additive. There are these funky lines that have been like dug into the surface, and there's this line that goes down the side. If you turned in something like this, you would fail this project because you do not have three added textures. This is one triangle. One triangle does not make a texture. In order to be a texture, it needs to repeat. Now this right here is repeating, but is it added on or is it taken away? We need added textures, three added textures. And so that's why this example shows three different ones. Here are some other textures made out of clay. This texture I made out of a small sample of clay, and then I painted part of it with blue glaze. So if you are not at the step where you are thinking about color, then just look at the part that isn't colored yet. You can see that I cut out each square and I attached it to the surface. So all the squares were added. That's an added texture. Here is a piece of white clay that's got two different textures. Again, I painted glaze on part of it. So here I've got coils. That's like rolls of clay that I rolled out. You've probably done that with Play-Doh before when you were little, right? Here are some scales. I'll show you how to make that if you're interested in learning how to make a scaly texture. It's not as hard as you would think. It's a little bit time consuming, but it looks really cool, right? Here's another texture. Now all of these things are repeating. If there was just one little rolled up ball of clay stuck to the surface, that would not be a texture. It has to repeat because patterns repeat. And patterns are textures. So here we have some textures on this one, and here's another. This one I made each coil and I rolled it up like a little cinnamon roll and I attached them to the surface. This one looks like grass. I made tiny little rolls and they kind of break off really easily, so think about that. All different textures, all additive, all repeating constantly. Any of these on your design would work really well. So be thinking about what you're going to add to your design to make some interesting textures. Here is one that I've already started. So I have already started adding this texture right here. Now I'm going to start adding the pieces that were rolled up coils, these right here. So each one is like a little cylinder that I'm adding to the surface. So what I'm doing is I'm drawing each cylinder. When we learned about 1-point perspective, you can see part of a side and the rest of it. So I'm drawing my cylinders all the way across. And then as you're drawing, you're going to notice things. Like I'm noticing that each one is getting shorter and shorter as it goes along. That's going to help you out a ton when you get to the point where you are actually making these textures. This texture right here It's almost like little jelly beans or little scales, but not quite. So continue adding your textures and continue making sure that you are making your drawing look nice. It should be really clear what your textures are. You are going to submit a picture of this today because this is your assignment, to turn in your rough draft drawing of your tile. If you haven't yet, make sure you've turned in your textures that we made using random stuff at your house, because this was due yesterday. Did you turn this in? Because this was due yesterday. Now, starting on Monday, you're going to take whatever shape your tile is, whether it's a square or here's another one that I made that's technically a circle. And when you get your clay, I am going to teach you how to take it out of the bag without ruining the whole thing. And then we are actually going to cut out your design so that it is exactly the right size. And then you're going to be placing it on the clay. You're going to cut out your tile shape, whether it's a circle or a square or whatever it is. And then all your extra pieces will become your added textures. This is what we are working on today. Your drawing of your textures is due today. I'm going to add some shading to mine so that it's very clear that these are three-dimensional forms that I have added to the surface. Remember, you need 3 added textures, and a texture is something that repeats, not just one thing stuck on the surface. So whatever your design was, start filling in some textures.